Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone that's joining us today. This is the Kesh Foundation Public Teaching in English for Monday, November 13th, 2017. And as usual, on every Monday, we have Understanding the Plasma Science series. And today is part 8, covering health, nature, and the soul. And we have Jim and Lisa McDonald with us today, and also Dr. Rodrigo Vidolsola. I'm your host, Flint Mulhausen. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Jim.
Hello, Flint, and hello to everybody. As usual, we'll start off with the health section, and we'll hand you straight over to Dr. Rodrigo. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So we continue with this teaching. I'm going to share the screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So, as we said, we continue with the Plasma Science Basics workshop series. And this is application of plasma technology in health, Plasma Science Workshop number 8. So, we have to understand your body, not to understand that your body creates its own balance and is capable of regenerating itself. How we're going to do it, that's the topic now, how we can bring balance to the body. There's two ways. First, to understand how we create diseases. We explained in the previous chapter how the body works, how the body, the energy of the body works according to environment. So here, we have to understand how we create physical imbalance and also emotional imbalance. There's two ways to get a disease on the body. So how we create imbalance on our body? Immigration. Remember when we discuss when we explain how the body works, how the body is formed in the planet according to the elements that we receive through the interaction of the magnetic gravitational field of the sun and earth, that will bring the elements like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and the hydrogen to the environment, and we bring those and we receive them and we absorb them through the skin. But as we said, around the world, there's different plants, as we explained, to bring balance, because the earth, when it goes around the sun, those elements that is in the universe varies. So they have to keep the balance in the world to have those different planets that creates the different elements on the environment. So when we immigrate, when people go from one place to another, there's different kinds of plants and trees that creates different oxygen, different oxygen in the environment. So it will bring imbalance to the body, and body start behaving differently. The pollution, as we said, we have a lot of pollution in the environment, and we absorb those things to us, plus with all those elements that our body need. A lot of pesticides in the food, GMO, vaccination, especially when they have a lot of mercury and aluminum in the body. We don't need those elements, but we found those elements in the vaccines, and that's what it causes imbalance of problems in the body. And also unnecessary medication. We take so many medication that it's impossible to bring balance to the body, to create balance, because we taking every single day those products. Another way to create emotional imbalances or worries, they keep us away from knowing ourselves, the system, the way we live. We always, instead of thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about the environment, how to create works to pay bills, working for money to provide to our families, paying for health insurance, keeping us in constant fear. We understand that we create our own reality, but if we don't think, we don't spend time to ourselves, we won't be able to change anything. Or we change in a negative way to create those diseases. And also the system that's empowering us, we cannot heal ourselves. That's constantly telling us, you cannot do anything. We do not have the answers, or keeping away from truth and knowledge. As we explained before, the environment, we receive energy through the environment, not only through the skin, we receive energy, we feed in ourselves, but also we feed in ourselves through the organ sense. As we explain how those organ sense affect the control or the balance of the body, depending on what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, all the emotions around us, all the elements, as I said, the elements, the pollution that we have around us. So once we have a disease, we have to understand, or we have to create a protocol in order to heal, to bring balance to the body, to allow the body to regenerate. So in the different ways, the ways we see it is we have to work on the physical and energetic field, and emotional, and the soul. What does it mean? Everything, every single step. Physical is the way all doctors work. That's a way, me as a doctor, that's a way, the only way we see that we can change. We used to see that the only way that we can change the body, doing surgeries, using pills, radiations, injections, etc. It's the only way we understood how to make changes on the physicality. Because energetically, as a doctors, we don't address that energy field that we have around the body. The only energy that we are aware of is the energy coming through the brain. But it's this electrical impulse. It's not an energetic field, like a plasma field. If we don't address that energetic field, and there's a lot of instruments, a lot of devices that prove that we have that energetic field around the body. Every single, as we explained, every single cell in the body has their own energy field, and every organ as well has their own energy field. And all together, we create one field that we can interact with the environment. We can give in whatever we need through that energy field. We don't need the physicality. And this is just to give you ideas. Later on, we're going to teach you how to create those devices. But this is going to give you an idea of how do we create an environment. These devices is not a healing device. They are not. They are just devices that create an environment so your body can take whatever it needs in order to respond to any disease. And we can change that body. So it's that we have seen this different one. This is our personal experiences. Oh, I made all this, but all the people can make a different one. It doesn't have to be this way. It's just an idea how to create those health units with coils, with rings, with dynamic reactors. As I said, just an idea. It doesn't have to be this way. But you give an idea, and you can change this. But this is a create an environment. And I repeat, they don't heal. This healing is the only word that medicals can use. If you are in the alternative medicine, you cannot use this word. It's prohibited to use it. So, but also we don't heal. We just bring balance so your body can change and regenerate itself. You have the power to do it. And this is a device, a Killian camera, that I have experience with people coming to here to use this unit. So this is Killian. It's an image taken by the images on the left side. So image taken by GBD technique, a computer-science registration and analysis of electrophotonic emission of different objects, including biological, specifically the human fingers, resulting from placing the object in the high-intensity electromagnetic fields on the device lens. This photo shows the electrophotonic emission of a person approximately 1 hour before and 1 hour after a session of 20 minutes in the bridge. I call them the bridge, that one of those devices. I will explain later why. And the 20 minutes in the rings. Observe how on the second image, the emissions are stronger and more balanced. It demonstrates greater energy and vitality. As you see those little gaps of energy, is where your body has their problems. Once they go inside the unit, as I said, only for an hour, it brings balance to the body. So if we keep the people inside the environment, eventually it's going to change everything. So also, as I said, there's 4 levels to treat or to bring balance to the body is to emotion, physicality, energetically, and emotionally, the third one. In the medical field, that is also a little tricky way to understand how we create diseases. Even though in the medical field, they said 98% of diseases are psychosomatic. And for them, when I explain them, now that I started to use this technology, and when I talk to doctors, when I explain and when I ask them what is stress, they categorize everything on stress. For them, for the doctors, or for us, we used to be that the stress is hyperactivity of the body, and they will respond to that because as we are not calm, we're not thinking, we're not allow the body to work properly. So there's a stress. And the way to deal with the stress is shutting down the body, shutting down the brain. And it's not, because it's not blocking your brain that we're going to deal with the stress. Actually, this stress is a word that has to be erased because it doesn't say anything. Actually, the problem is the proper word is emotions. Different emotions affect every part of the body. Remember how the soul controls the physicality to the emotions. So if we have a different kind of emotions, will affect or will create a different diseases. Just an example, this one, abandonment, how creates fibromyalgia, Alzheimer, anger creates cancer, fear as well, hatred, lack of love, attack of stroke. Lack of love on the heart is attacked. I have a heart attack or create a stroke. It's just an example. Once you get used to this, to using this technology, we understand that different emotions create different changes in the body. And then we have to address this. We have to learn how to address all the emotions. Otherwise, as people that are inside, they go inside the unit. Yes, we deal with the emotions, create an environment, we give them the elements, and the body responds. But we have to address the emotions. We have to understand what is the emotion that affect the body. Because if the people don't address that, they will create that problem again. So we have to understand, when you accept that emotions, you deal with that. That's the only way you can erase, for say in some way, that problem in your brain, and they won't create that changes in your body. So we have to address the emotions. There's a lot of books on that we can support ourselves in order to understand what kind of emotions are involved in every disease. So the question will be, do we fix the physical disease, or do we go right to the cause of the disease or emotions? So if we go to the disease, it's like a doctor just going in the surface way, just going to the physicality. We change the physicality, but we have to understand we create that problem through the emotions, because we control the body. As a soul, we control the body. So, and we can make any change depending on what is affecting us. So working on our emotions will change the physicality. That means that we have to take responsibility for our thoughts and actions. You create your own reality. You're the one who controls the body. So there's another idea how to create emotional balance through using different elements. In this example, is using GANs of CO2 and zinc. We explain we'll explain how do we create those elements, the GANs. What is GANs? What is those plasma? To use it on the medical field, but this to give you an idea how we use those elements to bring balance to the body. So as I said, you are the soul. If you don't address this, if you don't understand who you are, what you are, you won't be able to change anything. If you think this is you are on it in the physical way, your physical body, you're not changing. You'll not be able to change any disease. You have to understand who you really are. You are the soul that controls the physicality through the emotions. It's the balance. When we explain how the plasma works, every plasma has a center, has a strong field in the center, and the outside is a weaker field, weaker energy. As it is you are, if we have the brain, somebody has to control the brain. Who in the brain is? Who is in the center of the brain? You are the strongest field in the center controlling the outside. If you lose that control, that energy is when you release yourself through the body. If the body, which is the physicality, start having diseases or dies, there's no connection anymore. There's no balance. So it has to what is going to happen, what we call a decay. So we cannot sustain the physicality if something is going on, if something happened that is not be able to have that balance in the body. So that's when it dies. You leave the body. So as a soul, this is when that happened. So for now, it seems a little information, but actually it's a lot of information. You have to understand all this, to analyze it and think about it. So if you have any questions, go ahead.
Yes, Rodrigo. Has there been any experience in seeing if the soul is still present when the people which have been operated on and have external body experiences?
Well, that happened when though we call the near-death experience, is when apparently you lost that balance. We have sometimes you have a heart. I mean, clinically you die, and you have that connection, but you will that the doctors are able to bring balance to that physicality, and then the connection happen again. This is one way to understand that if you lose that body in that moment, you lost connection. And in the way you're starting to lose connection, you have experience out of the body, but you're losing that connection. But if the doctors in that moment are able to bring that physicality to life, to a certain balance, the connection is back again, and you're inside the body, back inside the body.
Yes, but according to many patients, some have had experiences of over 20 minutes just watching their operation from up above.
Yes, but we started to understand that do we really lost that connection? Yeah, you have experience out of the body experience, but you have to understand that the field, the energy field is very strong, and why energy is. Yes, you are in the center way out of the body, but not it's the field energy. You are aware, or you are whether you are outside, but not disconnected, because the field of energy of that body is wide. It's not just a little energy around the body. It's 1 centimeter or 2. It's wide energetic, and you are able to see yourself outside. But that connection is not lost completely. You still.
Yes, I understand that. Yes. Because some of them also have the experience of meeting their dead family members, and then they come back also.
Well, we can discuss a lot of all this.
Don't. So we can talk about this some other time, I imagine. So
Yes, because it's a good issue. I mean, it's a good topic to discuss, but we can spend a lot of time discussing because I don't think that people are ready to address that situation, because if they still think in relations, that's a different way to understand all this. Even though people know that we have a soul, but they don't understand that we are the souls. They think that this is just certain kind of connections between us and the Creator, but we really are the souls. So it will take time for people to understand that, but this is the first steps of giving that knowledge. But I understand what you mean. What you mean, John? But we had to address this, I think, in different topics. Any other questions? Or we pass? Or we continue with do Jim, and if at the end people have questions?
Yes, Nicholas Morrow had his hand up.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Dr. Rodrigo and everybody.
Nicholas, good morning.
So my question is a question about relationships and relationships, in the people that we live with. Often the person that we spend the most time with, a partner or a wife, our family, our children. For me, it's my children and grandchildren. I guess when I was younger, it was my parents and my grandparents. And that there are certain patterns that come into that are strongly emotional. Many of the things on your list that you listed there emotionally. And so we develop patterns. And as much as we love each other, we often elicit those emotions, and they're constantly with us. And it's not always easy to change that emotional environment without having to go somewhere, having to do a vacation, having to do a retreat, having to actually leave that environment, leave the house or something like that. And so my question is how that is connected, how one can work with that, because I can see that in different situations that is one of the keys to returning to optimum health.
Yes, you have the connection for all of them, but what kind of connection you have? That's the question. What kind of connection you have with your mother? What kind of connection you have with your father or your kids? It's not just being with them, but how is the relationship? And one of the problems is, or the thing is, you have the power to control everything. But if you give away the power, you're not controlling. You start controlling yourself. You start changing or control, or stop bringing that balance to yourself. But we give ourselves power in order to bring happiness in a way to others instead of thinking of ourselves. We have to stop thinking or start thinking a different way. The most important person in the world is you yourself. If you're happy to yourself, you create that energy around you and you will bring people around you. But if you worry all the time about your family, your environment, you give away your power. You're not thinking about yourself. We have a saying that says the only way to love is when you love yourself. To understand that you love yourself, the love is when you love yourself. You love yourself, you can love everyone. If you don't love yourself, you cannot love everyone, anybody. So if you have, the only way to have emotional balance in the body is that you are the most important being in the world, in the universe. It's you. After you is the rest of the people. But you have to care. You take care of yourself, not caring about others, because you're dying. How many people really care about themselves? Most of the people care about others, and they forgot about themselves. They lost their balance. They lost that connection to herself, that energy. They bring that balance to your body. So the question is here: who is the most important being in this planet? Is yourself. It's the only way you can change anything around you, for good or for bad. But it's you. Depending on you, that balance, that energetic field that you have around you, as you said, you attract whatever you think. If you think of something happiness around you, you're happy. You bring that, attract those kind of people. It's like an example. Let me give you an example. If you wake up in the morning and you see yourself in the mirrors and you sometimes say, "Oh, I feel incredible good. I look nice. My hair looks nice. My skin, everything." You go outside happy, and everyone's smiling at you. Everyone is happy around you. This is what's going on. Everyone is happy. Yes, I'm happy. You create that reality around you. But sometimes you wake up in the morning and you see yourself, you don't like it yourself. You don't like the way your skin is. You don't like the way you cannot comb your hair properly. You don't like the dress. You don't like the clothes you're wearing. You are in the mad mood. You're going out of your house, and what you have around you? Somebody start yelling at you. Somebody is mad at you. You create that environment around you. So if you had a relationship with your kids, with your wife, with your parents, and you are in that mood, that is a kind of energy you will attract to yourself. So you have to understand the most important thing is you. If you're happy, you bring that energy around you. All the people around you will be happy. Just see it that way. It makes sense? That answer your question?
Well, it was more than asking the question. It definitely answers my question, but it really feeds my heart, Dr. Rodrigo. Thank you. I'm seeing thank you. I appreciate it. Great answer. So the first thing we drink in the morning, the first thing that we think in the morning, coming to the world and with gratitude rather than need, I can see is a habit of great value. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Okay, we got several other questions here. We had a Hassan. Here to stand up, Hassan. You have a question?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, hello. Go ahead.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Rodrigo, for what you're making. My question will be regarding the power of the soul. I have some cases where I made pens and ganses and I gave to people, and the most of the time it works with the intent. But there's a case, mother of a friend, which has a cancer case, and it's not easy to handle. I tried just by guess, and sometimes her case is getting good, but sometimes it's getting worse. So I want to know if I can reach by my soul, by the soul. Can we reach? Because I'm not close to the people which is sick, and she is like 50 kilometers far from where I am. I know that most of the problems are daily life problems. I know that it's an emotional problem, but cannot handle that case. I'm trying by everything to handle it. How can we maybe make her health case better by reaching her? I don't know how to tell it. By trying to reach her soul and make her feel better. She's vomiting. That's the problem we have. Every day she's vomiting, and she wants to try food again. She don't want to eat anymore, but I've never made food again. I don't know if I can handle. I don't know. I need to know how to handle, to reach her soul and to make her stop vomiting.
We are in the process of understanding all this world. As I said many times, we live in this world is a playground. So once you understand the rules, it will be easier to live in. So we are in the first steps that we understand that we are what we are in the souls. But to handle a disease, I know you have the intentions to change, and we are learning how to do that, to empower ourselves and to make the changes. We are learning, and we are in the first steps to do it. But to deal with the disease, you have to understand the person who's dealing with that disease. If she really wants to change, yes, you create reality around you to yourself, but that person is also creating that environment, that disease. Why she's creating that disease, you have to understand. Yes, well, they said yes. She wants to change. She wants to be cured because she doesn't want to feel bad. But why she create that disease? What is the emotion involved in that problem? Sometimes people come here and you trying everything to bring balance to that body, to make them get rid of that disease or that cancer. But if they don't want to live, if they don't want to get well, you're not going to change it. So that's why you have to understand what kind of emotions are involved in that disease and that problem that that entity has, that person, that lady. Why she create that disease? You have to understand what kind of emotions are involved. So go through that. If she wants to really heal herself or regenerate that body in order to bring balance, because healing is a tricky word. We don't use that healing, but to get rid of that disease, to get rid of the cancer, you can create realities around you, but not always you can change other realities, other person, because what are the realities they wanted to have or to live in? There's a lot of people, they don't want to be healed. They don't want to be changed. They don't want to be they don't want to be somebody. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, but for her case, it's a special case. I know that she can heal herself. Maybe she's not that convinced because she was affected by that cancer at 12 years age, and doctors told her, "You have 7 days to live. You can go and live those 7 days with your kids." And she decided that no, it's not gonna happen like that. She stopped treatment, anything, and she tried plants. But after now, 25 years later, she's still living. But sometimes in her life, it reappears. Maybe it reappears 2 times, 3 times in that 25 years. And after that, it disappears. But from 2 months now, her case was started to be bad. Many metastases everywhere, and by giving her just against water to drink, and telling her that try to get your problems out of your mind, try to be happier, try to forget about money problems. But I think that it's daily lives money problems. Physicality is more involved, and if I can touch her like Mr. Kesh touched every souls of us so beautifully and so easily. Like the words, maybe I do not have the words to reach her soul. Maybe I can bring you, Dr. Rodrigo, so that you can finish your teaching. I can bring you the case by Facebook, send you some radio, some photos, so that you can help to handle.
Yes, you can. Yes, bring me more information. I can help you to find what kind of emotions is involved. It's not about money. It's not about physical. It's not about what he has or what she doesn't have. We have to go deeper in that, especially in the childhood. What kind of emotions? What kind of relationship she had with the mother?
May I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
This is Estela.
Go ahead, Stella.
When this, I don't know your name, the other person who is doing the case. I think a good way to support this person, because the emotions are traumas accumulated in the body. And by having a very loving dialogue, you can reach her soul and ask questions and let her talk and identify her emotions and ask questions. How did you feel at 12 with all what you went through? And the emotions, they're gonna pop. And once the emotion pops, you say, okay, now you're older. We can heal these traumas, let it go. And if she's angry or upset or frustrated, she needs to forgive the person and make her feel frustrated and forgive herself, because she hurt herself by accumulating the emotions. And by in that dialogue explaining the process that without knowing we hurt ourselves with the emotions. So once she understands the mechanism of releasing those blockages and emotions by forgiving herself and others, that's going to help the process to the gangs, to the body start reabsorbing, because she's in dialogue with those cells, with the body. And in my experience, it's important be very gentle and very loving and support, because once she feels she's surrounded by love, she's going to be able to do the release. Even if it's, painful, it's okay to cry or whatever. But it's important because this life, the journey of this life is this. Is to learn that we've been walking with no memory and no knowledge of who we are and how our bodies work, and it's about understanding this, and then we can really be more aware to living happy and giving and everything. But we have to go through this process of learning. It's painful, but it's good. That's the most important. It's good to understand it. That's the only thing I want to say.
Thank you so much, Stella.
Okay, we have Pavel here. Did Pavel have any? You have any questions?
We do have a question in live stream. If
Yes, go ahead, Rick.
reading there from Warren. how can you accurately determine the effect of plasma devices on the extremely complex body, which is the human body?
That complex body, first we have to understand how the body works. The way we thought as a doctor, the way we were taught the body works is not, it's not that way. It was a big lie. It was a big deceit. So the body, we have to understand that complex body is made of 25 elements. Only 25 elements. Do we need a millions of medications we've been created on the world? So we need just elements. It's like, give an example. You have a shark in the ocean, and you take the shark in the ocean from the ocean, and you bring him to a nice and beautiful lake, sweet water. So that shark is going to be able to live in that environment? No. So we're changing the environment, and it's be able to live properly. So we bring that balance to the body. Your body has an energetic field. And once you understand that energetic field, you can give the body whatever the body needs and bring that balance. So that complex is not just, now as a doctor, and I understand, the more I know about the plasma, I understand that the body is not as complex as we thought it is. And it can change us. I mean, the way to change this is easier now. We have tools to make those changes because we didn't understand how the body works before that. Because if you think only in the physicality as a complex unit, that it works in different way, yes, it's going to be difficult because you're still in the physicality. But you can change that. And we've proven in many ways that you can change instantly. What is the miracles? What miracles happen? Because those miracles, the people wanted to make that change. Or people around them, when they pray, that has a lot of intentions, a lot of energy, and that energy affects the soul of their body, and it changes and brings miracles. So we're starting to see miracles using this technology. They're not really miracles. It's understanding how the body works, and we're just bringing the balance in the body change. It's not as complex as we thought it is. The body is. At the beginning, when we start working with Mr. Kesh said, the human body is the easiest machines to change in the universe. I says, well, the body, I think, is a very complex unit to understand. And it's not. The more I understand the plasma, the easier way to find the ways to change it. It's not as complex as we thought. Let's just say we are made up of 25 elements. So you bring those elements around you as an energetic field, which you make those changes.
Thank you, Dr. Rodrigo. We have some questions from Facebook. How do you heal emotions? Is it enough to acknowledge it?
But you have to understand, it's not healing emotions. Emotions are just energetic fields that you have to understand. Let me give an example. If you have, I have problems. Let me give one specific disease, fibromyalgia. There's a lot of people that I've seen with that problems. And why they have that problem, why they create that problem, that pain in the muscles, on the body, and not be able to walk, and that becoming less and less active. And we've seen that kind of a person have problems with relationship with the mother, have abandonment from the mother. They have lack of love, that with no connection. And the kids, when we were kids, we just want to have love from the mother or from the father. And when you don't have that love from them, you do anything to bring them. How many times you work outside and you're playing a game and you see your father around you, your mother around you, you do anything to bring their attention, to see you that you're playing well or bad, whatever you're doing in the game. So you're always trying to bring the attention for them because you want love from them. So you create whatever. So inside your mind, if you lack of that, you are in that position that you lack that connection, you feel abandoned. And so inside of your subconsciousness or your soul, you create something in your body in order to bring that connections to your mother. You create problems. You create or a disease in order to bring the attention of them. And I talk to those people. Sometimes I have been able to talk with the person who have fibromyalgia, and I said, yes, you can change the body, the condition of your body. You can bring balance to your body. You can get rid of that really disease. But are you prepared to be yourself and not trying to bring the love of the people around you? Because when they have their problems, everybody's around them. Everybody is taking care of them. The mother is taking care of them. And they see, why am I going to get rid of this disease? This is because through this disease, I bring what I love the most is my mom or my lovers. I bring them, so they're taking care of me. Do I really want to get rid of this disease? Because it's the only way to bring those people around me. So it doesn't matter how strong your soul is or the people around you that want to change you. It's you the one who has to make the decisions if you really want to change. So you have the power to change through the emotions. So depending on what kind of emotions are involved in that disease. Breast cancer. If we talk about left breast cancer, the left breast is connected to the mother and your kids. And if you have problems with them, you want to get rid of that connection. So you destroy that connection, which is the left breast. So create cancer. So if you have the right breast cancer, if the connections to your lover, to your husband, to your father, if you have problems with them, you want to get rid of that connection. That's why you create cancer in that breast. So,
but it's more complex than that.
I know, but just to give you an idea how to change the body.
It's important because elevation of the soul means understanding relationship with your mother, father, brother, whatever, and within yourself. And an event that happened 20 years ago, in the subconscious mind, you keep taking that event and translating in another event, and you store emotions because you felt at one point abandonment. So that's the key to understand. Not the problem with the mother, it was about the mechanism that an emotion of abandonment made me feel less love or lack of worthiness. And I keep repeating this cycle through my life, and I'm in middle age and I'm feeling like life is crap. Okay, nobody loves me or whatever. So yes, it's good to try to have the intentions to make a change, but the key element is what I just said. And we cannot blame it, we cannot put the energy out because we did this to ourselves. That's the key element, because everybody suffers from lack of love, because the system and the way the education and everything is to disempower. And sometimes we do things without knowing and we hurt other people. So to bring the power back and to heal the body, the gangs bring the perfect environment because give the nutrition that the body needs. So at that moment, the person can start to address the emotions, because if the environment is toxic, it's two problems at the same time. So that's what I see is important to work with emotions, but it's all connected to the elevation of the soul. Understanding that the power is inside, that we are loving people, and life is possible, but we have to self-heal by awareness, forgiving, loving, and no blame, no nothing, nothing of, we cannot do that. I mean, we have to address the emotions very with an elevation of the soul, very from the heart, because we are awakening, we are opening the eyes. And that's very important to understand, because we've been walking blind. Sorry, but I have to say it because it's very important to be centered in the still point, not taking emotions, just understanding in order to make the next step to heal.
Don't be sorry, Stella. You're absolutely right. As we said, we are awakening. We are starting to understand that process. We thank you really for your comments. They're very precise. Thank you so much.
No, I just feel like I'm opening my mouth, talking.
Oh, you're absolutely right. No, not at all.
I just feel that it's so important to be in a position of, that where our emotions are centered and being respectful to the client, respectful to ourselves, but healing with love, with greatness, with it's good to be alive. It's going to be painful, but, it's powerful.
Yeah. And we're learning. We're on that process to understand the diseases. Thank you so much, Stella. Really
thank you, Stella.
Comments.
Got a couple more questions here. What is the emotion of arthritis?
Well, there's a lot to address every emotion, every problem. Is we start to learn. We can have. There's books and books about they're talking about emotions. There's a lot of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's. Christiana Bierland has a large book that she wrote on that.
Flint, can you repeat the question again? It's Caroline.
Hi, Caroline. The question was from Katja Metzer. What is the emotion of arthritis?
Or emotion of arthritis?
Yes.
It's, if I may, Dr. Rodriguez.
Go ahead, Caroline, please. Yes, thank you.
Arthritis is that the person is not walking correctly. You can change that because if you remember in Mr. Cash's explanation in the medical, he repeated it again later in one of the teachings, is you can ask the person to start walking and put more pressure on the heel so that the vibrations changes for the penetration of the field into the bone. So you can tap with the heel, the back of your foot, like tapping, but on a certain rhythm, if they cannot walk or they walk very difficult, but they can even do it by sitting down. If they tap the back of the foot on a rhythm, left and right, it takes time, but you can rebuild the strength for them to go out through the whole body to reset the whole system. Do you remember that teaching, Dr. Rodriguez?
Yes, this is how to stimulate your bone marrow.
Yeah.
It's incredible because I have a lot of discussion with orthopedics discussing about the stem cells. And I tell them you can stimulate your own stem cells regardless of your age. Just understanding how it works. How do you send information to your bone? It's just tapping your heels because we have inside our bones we have streams or when I normally as a doctors we saw those on the bones and we thought it was a skeleton inside the skeleton, just the support of the bones, but actually there are fibers. They vibrate according to the way you walk and sending informations to the bone marrow in order to create the specific cells through the body in order to change it, to bring balance to that body. It's a beautiful teaching by Mr. K. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Caroline.
I personally, I used the book Metaphysical Anatomy to understand what kind of emotions are involved in every disease. So you can check on the website that book, and you understand little by little what kind of emotions are involved in every disease. As I said, I don't know all the emotions involved in every disease, but I'm learning. And that's what we're doing here. It's a new process, a new way of bringing balance to the body and get rid of any disease. It's in the beautiful way.
Is it the same for the arthritis in the fingers?
Arthritis is a different way. Arthritis is a deposit of calcium. In a physical way, it's a deposit of calcium on the joints. But also, the people has a lot of calcium in the joints, but has a lack of calcium in the bones. It has osteoporosis. There's two ways. So we're using gas. We're pulling the calcium out of the joints and bring it back to the bones. We're using CO2 gas in that case. But it's understanding the physicality. How do you change with using energy, energetic fields? You can change any part of your body. You can change anything you want. Just energetic, using different fields of energy.
But you also enhance, Dr. Rodriguez, by working on the feet. The tapping of the feet, the vibration resets the whole body from top to toe. So the calcium can be and will be reducing, but it is something you have to remember every day to do the exercise, and it works throughout the body.
Yes, definitely. One of the conditions that brings a lot of imbalance in the body, in order to not to do what you're doing, what you're saying, which is the best way to I don't like to use that word heals, but again, bring balance to your body is to understand how to walk properly. But we use, as part of the system, we use a big, this comfortable tennis shoes, and now a lot of people, last week, I saw a person who came to me. It says he's starting to have a lot of problems in their knees and the joints and the hips and their back, a lot of pain. And I asked him, the first question I says, when you start feeling that way, what changes you make on the life? And she said, actually, since I bought a new shoes that has the foam, the memory foam, there's incredible shoes that are very expensive. That is the foam. When you walk, you walk so nice. But actually, I start to feel pain. Yes, because you stop sending that information to your bone marrow. If you walk barefoot, if you tap your heels, your foot, you change the whole body. What is the problem with sports people? Why they hurt themselves so often? Sport people, when we said, don't we have to do exercise to be healthy? But the thing is, the way all sports people, they walk or they run using the toes, not the whole foot. If they teach them how to tap the heels, the whole foot completely, the whole body would change. They will heal themselves. They will repair all those problems they have in the knees and the joints and the hips, whatever. So that's what before I start using every of these GANs or machines or everything, I says you can change yourself, you can heal yourselves just tapping properly, walk properly, using the whole foot, barefoot, not walk on the carpet, not walk on with nice and foamy or spongy shoes. Tap you in the hard surface, and you will see a lot of changes in your body. Your body start responding. Your bone marrow. Remember, the bone marrow is where the cells, the mother cells, put them this way, is the one who creates cells of all body. Whatever you have a problems, the bone marrow creates cells in order to repair that problem in your body. If you have problems in your heart, you have problems in your liver, whatever you have problems, the bone marrow has to create those cells. And the best way to bring that connections is you walk properly, barefoot on this hard surface, and you will see a lot of changes in your body. As I said, you can change your own body. You have the capacity, the ability to change your own body. All this technology that Mr. Guest has taught us, as he said, is just a training devices, training to understand that you have the capacity to change anything in your body. This is beautiful, this. I see it this way. It's a training devices, and we're learning to change ourselves, to heal ourselves, to make any change in the body. But it's us, the one who's going to do it. When we understand who we are, which using that complex body, as I said, to become easier to change it, to make those changes. Once you understand, it's easy to handle. It's like having a nice and single car, and suddenly they brought us a Ferrari. Has a complex way of handling that car. But once somebody comes and teach you how to drive those cars, you will be able to drive it with no problems. The same way it was complex, but once you understand how it works, it's not as complex as we thought. So the same as the body. Once we understand how the body works, we can make those changes.
Okay, next question is, do we bring...
Clint, hello.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a bit long in the time here. Otherwise, we're going to have a long session.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, I got about 4 more questions lined up here.
No, we can't.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rodrigo.
You're welcome, and thank you, all of you.
Okay, we'll move on now. Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, Dr. Rodrigo. I know there will be 101 questions and then another 1,000 thereafter. So we just can't take them all tonight. Okay, let me share. Right, so the next part will be on nature. And what I'm going to do today is just explain and show how nature can tell us about this field interactions and the concept of the strong feeding the weak and how we can use this when we begin to understand. So it was one of the experiments I had done very early on, and it was just using the effects of trying to see the effects of using the liquid plasma water on seeds. And so in the beginning, the objective was wanting to soak the seeds with the liquid plasma water and then just soak another batch of seeds with the plain water and to observe the difference. And I had done this on a very quick growing crop, which was a micro radish, so it's just your daikon radish. And from seeding to when you cut the first 2 leaves is about 7-8 days. So it's a very quick experiment to get to that stage. So the method that we had used was we had soaked 1 batch of seeds in plain water, and then we had soaked the other batch in CO2 and CH3 liquid plasma water for 24 hours. And then we had then seeded both in plain cocoa fiber, and we left them to germinate as our normal process. And so that during the next 7 days, each batch was then watered respectively with plain water and the other one with its liquid plasma water. And then we harvested both batches on the same day and packaged. So I tried to keep it quite similar in what I was doing to both of them. And normally our product, we've been growing for several years, and it would last between 11 and 14 days in the fridge. So that was our normal shelf life for this particular product. And just to refresh those that we had done, I think it was in workshop part 5, the liquid plasma water is just the water above your GANS. So it's not using the GANS itself, it's just taking the water, because it's the water itself which is containing the fields of that GANS. So that was just a refresh so that people can understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the liquid plasma water. So this picture shows the 2 there side by side, the left one plain water and the right one with the plasma water. So that was just initially after germination. And then this was the day I was going to cut them. So you can see the one on the left plasma, one on the right just with the water. And at that stage, there was no noticeable difference between the two in terms of better growth in the one or not the other. We had, however, noticed the difference in the root structure, because the 3 at the bottom was the radish that had been soaked in the plasma water, and the one at the top was just the plain water. So there was definitely a difference in the root structure there, more vigorous root growth that we had seen, and a lot more complex than the plain water one. And so both were cut and washed, and then we put them into a punnet, and then they went into the fridge. So this was on day 1. Now, the way I've arranged the photos for the next couple of slides is the photo on the left would be day 1, and then the photo on the right is going to be day 9. And when you look at the 2 punnets there, it's a case of the seeds grown with the water is on the left, and the seeds grown with the plasma is on the right within each photograph. So that was day 9. As you can see, there was no difference. Very healthy. This photograph was taken then on day 14. As you can see, they're still looking very good. At this stage, we normally don't, we start seeing quite a lot of deterioration of the radish that we'd normally grown. But they were still looking very, very good at this stage, and no problems after day 14. We then took another photo on day 20, and there you can see there's also really no change, and we've never really had any of our radish last longer, get to a day 20 in this sort of condition. So this was totally new territory for us. And generally by this stage, most of our micro radish ended up, you get a nice little black puddle in the bottom of the container as it degrades and rots. But we never got that. And this was on day 28. Not the greatest photograph, but also there was just no changes in the micro radish. They're still looking very, very good. And then I'd forgotten it for a while, and so now we were on day 41. And here we could see a little bit of yellowing on more, a little bit more on the water than on the plasma, if you look at the photograph on the right. But otherwise looking very, very good. There's more photographs on day 47. A little bit more changing in the yellow there, but otherwise all still very, very good. Now at this stage as well, when we open up the containers, there was just no smell. Now normally when the radish, because it's sort of a mustard flavor, it has when it does rot, it has a terrible smell. But this one, it was only a vegetation smell that one could smell. There was no rotting at all. The radish itself was still very firm to the touch. And we had only lost 3 grams of moisture from day 1 to day 47. So it maintained its texture and weight very, very well during this stage. Now, obviously, now we were also at the point where we're now at day 47, whereas by day 14, we started seeing a lot of degradation of our radish. And at this stage, as I say to a lot of people, you could have used this radish in a sandwich because it still looked very, very good. Here was day 78. And now we could see quite a bit of the yellowing of the leaves, but that was all that was noticeable. Also no smell at that stage, just the yellowing of the leaf. And then I really forgot them in the fridge. And it was remembered on day 134, and then I started taking some more photographs again. And you can see they had completely gone yellow. They'd just been sitting in the fridge for all this time, so they'd all gone yellow. The interesting part as well is when we take photographs from the side point of view, is that they were all still very firm. You know, normally they would, anything that is in the fridge for so long would all settle down to the bottom and in a big puddle, but they were still very, very firm and holding their position there. So after 134 days, the radish had gone yellow. There was no smell coming from them, and they were still very firm. But the question that one needs to ask is, and which I asked myself, was why the water-only radish is also lasting just as long as the radish which we had soaked with the liquid plasma water. Because my experiment, when I set it out to do it, was to compare the two, to compare something soaked with the liquid plasma water with the same seed soaked with plain water. So at this stage, I was quite confused as to what was going on and with the experiment as to why both were lasting just as long. And then we got to 180 days. So that is essentially 6 months. And now you can see that we are getting degradation of the radish there, and it is really looking messy. And when you look at the side, you can see then how now it's all collapsing down into the bottom of the punnet, into a puddle there. And generally, when you look at this picture, this is more or less what we were getting after sort of day 14. But here we're sitting at day 106 months later. So the observation that we'd come with is that we'd never had any of our radish last beyond 14, 15 days. And here we were sitting at how it lasted up to 6 months, but 45 days where it was still looking very, very good. There was no smell, very small odor, slight odor coming from it, more vegetation smell. We just seen a lot of just yellowing of the leaves. And even after day 41, we'd only lost 3 grams moisture. And both were kept in the fridge at 4 degrees Celsius all the time. So now I come back to the same question again as to why the radish soaked in the water lasts just as long as the radish soaked in liquid plasma water. And then we begin to understand what was really happening is that because the water-only radish and the liquid plasma water radish had been sitting next to each other, you know, when we had soaked the seeds in the water, the 2 separate containers, they were sitting next to each other. When we put them out onto our tables to grow, you can see the trays were sitting next to each other, and even while they were growing. And then while these containers were sitting in the fridge for so long, they were either next to each other or on top of each other, but they were always next to each other. Oh, very slow. Okay. So essentially what was happening is the stronger fields from the radish that had been soaked with the liquid plasma water was interacting with the weaker fields, and then that's causing the water-only radish to last just as long as the plasma radish. So it comes down to that principle of the stronger feeding the weaker. And that's why the water has lasted just as long. And they're able to interact because they are made of the same fields. So we found a match because both are made of the daikon radish. And so the fields were able to interact with each other. So what we had done was the addition of the liquid plasma water to the radish seeds and also created a new environment around the radish. So besides having the interaction of the stronger feeding the weaker, it had created a totally new, different environment around the radish, which was this was making it, creating that different environment, so it was able to last that much longer. Because when we begin to understand what decay of our vegetation is all about, we understand that the fruit, for example, is constantly interacting with its environment. And your fruit or vegetable is a plasma and has a certain field strength. and it's constantly giving and receiving to its environment, and its environment is this Earth, the planet we're living on, and it has its own MAGRAF field strength. So we have a plasma, which is the fruit, within a bigger plasma, which is the Earth. So this is the interaction of the fields. So when we understand that when a fruit or vegetable starts to decay, it means it has lost its ability to maintain its field strength in relation to the surrounding field strength. So decay, in simple words, is a loss of fields to the environment. So what we were doing with the adding the additional liquid plasma water of CO2 and CH3 is we were also changing the environment around the radish. The radish itself was changed, had a different environment. It had a higher strength, MAGRAF field strength, so it was able to last so much longer in the same condition. So there it was, say, creating a different environment around the radish. And so this environment interacting with Earth's environments, and because it was so much stronger, it was able to last up to 180 days. So this concept of the stronger feeding the weaker, we can relate that now to different parts of the technology. And the one part of it is when we're using the GANs in certain medical applications, whether we're using the liquid plasma water, we are having that same connection with the human body, and we also have the same principle where we have a stronger one feeding the weaker one. So it was nice to see this in actual effect taking place in nature and the experiment, because it just comes and proves what we've been learning about on the health aspect and how the GANs really has an impact on our bodies. And we can also take that the next level up in terms on our soul perspective. It's the same. So, you know, whether we're having the interaction between different people is the same. Where we're having what one person is having a different interaction with another person, and one's feeding another one. And that leads into the whole soul discussion, which Lisa will do. So any questions on that?
Yes, I have a question.
That was quick. Go ahead.
That was a quick question. Or a quick response. The question is twofold. One, do you think that the radishes, this case, if they're consumed, if they're eaten by a person, will they break down? Are they digestible? Is the reason that they aren't breaking down because they are holding their MAGRAF field? So when we eat them, will they release their MAGRAF field to nourish the body? Otherwise, we might say, are they digestible so the nutrients can be released for our body? So in both cases, the question is will they release what they hold to transfer to the human body? Are they digestible?
Yes, exactly the same way as any other food, because the minute we're eating that food, it's going to go through that whole process in the stomach where everything gets broken down, and so you have that different environments in the stomach. So it goes through the same process. what it is doing is it is then releasing different fields of a different field strength because of what you've done to the food, which nourishes the body in a far better way.
Well, yeah, this was a little bit of my question about using the ganses to you know, in our environment and in our consumption. Let me see. I think I didn't prepare this question, so I'm going to back off on it. Thank you very much.
We're only using the liquid plasma water and on the radish seeds, and even if you're watering your plants, anything with the water, and it's the water that is the carrier of the fields, and that's changing that environment for the plants. And so if you are eating those, if you happen to eat those plants, all you're doing is you end up eating a much healthier plant because it's able to take in and create a different environment, a more healthy environment of itself.
We have a question from the live stream. If you can take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Marin says, if you had, say, mistakenly lost the labels of the containers, how could you determine which of the two cultures had a difference in field strength? How can you determine, or basically, how can you measure it? How can you measure the plasma is what he's getting to.
Yeah,
we don't have any instruments at this stage where we're able to point at something and actually measure the difference in the field strengths.
What about using, some people seem to use dowsing rods to determine the field strength of the some of the power reactors and that kind of thing.
There are, we have had many people say that the food that we've grown measures when they're using pendulum, and that it measures much higher than any other food. You know, and so all those are not, a lot of people would not consider them scientific per se, but they are quite valid, and many people do use those different techniques around the world, and we do use them as well. So it is one way.
What about probably the most important instrument, which should be our own body? The response, some people seem to be sensitive to what we call feeling the fields.
Yes.
People may not be sensitive to feeling the fields. Some people can see colors or see auras, and other people may have other ways of sensing those fields.
Can I come in? Can you hear me?
Oh, please do, Mr. Cash. Thank you.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Cash.
There's a very simple method. This is what now can be used. If you just take the water from either one and you measure the pH, the one which has got the CO2 in it has a higher strength pH. It's very simple. We can just buy the only method now scientifically we can do, except measuring magnetic field, is a pH level. Even the fruit or the vegetation pH is different. The one who's got the CO2 and the one which is adjacent to it. There is some research going on which now we're seeing the fruit adjacent or the radish adjacent to the box. In a way, if we go back to part of the teaching of Dr. Rodriguez, it's a very clear explanation of it. If you look at like growing trays, if you put growing, let's say a stackers, there are stackers of let's say radishes in 4 or 5 levels in one stacker in the trolleys. If you put double the amount of CO2 in the bottom trolley and half of the amount of CO2 on the top tray of the vegetation in the top trolley, so you create a circulation. Instead of adjacent to be vertically up on top of each other, we see the same level of growth between all the materials, even the ones which don't have a gas water. So if you, even how you position it, it'll give a different effect. So in a way, if you create a central column and put all your, or just put a water gas CO2 on the top, half the gas and double the gas amount on the bottom tray, the field creation will give you the same thing. You don't need, by the look of the experiment, to be needing any gas water in any of the middle trays. You create a vertical position where now the one which wasn't fed by CO2 is on the adjacent to it. And the field flow you create is like a chimney. Everything goes upwards, but you have to create that. Dr. Rodriguez does it with his machines. Creates a different strength flow between the top and the bottom, and it creates a south-north pole, which the bottom pulls, and the top, trying to feed the top, it creates a flow between the vegetation. But you can measure the pH. You can even say which pH, which tray they come from, because it's a slightly different. The bottom trays have a different pH, and the top trays very, very small amount, till they get the saturation, and then it balances off. This is what we know, and this is how scientifically in evaluation of the gas water is getting accepted for standardization.
Thank you, Mr. Kesh.
Time for one more question.
I have a question. Had you okay, obviously you found out about the fields and it was affecting the radishes there. And if you wanted to repeat that experiment again, how far apart would you have to have the 2 different trays to properly grow them and see the actual difference between the water and the gas?
That's also a difficult question, because one has to, when it comes down to agriculture, you know, everybody wants to compare one against the other, but we are dealing with different conditions. Because if we had to create this experiment again and do one here in sort of one place and another one, say 2 or 3 kilometers away, we are growing them in different conditions. So one would have to do it in a very sort of ideal lab condition to compare the two. And I think they'd have to be very far apart, a couple of kilometers far apart. But then it also comes down to you, the observer. If you're going to go to each one of these facilities, for example, what impact are you going to have on this radish as well? Because you are going to both and you are interacting with both. So it comes down to more questions than answers. Sorry, Flint.
Yeah, no problem.
Maybe if you send love to the radish, it's going to last longer as well.
Well, I was wondering if you guys were loving the ordinary radishes as much as the Gans radishes, or were they kind of left out a little bit? Did they have a bad childhood or not?
Were you playing rock music or classical music?
Were they all treated the same? It's always a big issue in families, you know.
Hello, this is Klaus from Austria.
Hello, Klaus.
Hello, Jamie. When you start in a new experiment and you have this in the size of the container as you have, the fields are 5 to 6 meters. But when you put it in the fridge, the fields stay 3 or 4 weeks long. So you have to take care the distance.
How do you measure that, Klaus?
I see these fields. For me, it's easy.
Well, that was an easy answer for you. How can you give advice to others to use that facility? Perhaps some way to learn, or did you always have that ability?
Yes, we start in the afternoon at 2 p.m. with this work today.
That's in the private teaching, Rick, here.
Okay, so people can tune into the private teaching to get all the details then.
Yeah.
And we make it all action. And one thing to addition, there is other scientific method to measure this, and we make this with big farmers. When we work with these fields in my normal state with the diamagnetic from the minerals and from the soil, we see the biophotons, and we can measure the biophotons, and we see there is many more radiation of biophotons when the food is healthier, when the food is on a higher energetic level. That can we measure.
It makes sense that we should be able to measure the vitality, what we call the vitality of a fruit or vegetable, as an example. I mean, that's basically what we're looking for when we go in the supermarket and people paw through all these different, all the tomatoes, squeezing all the tomatoes to find the one that's the right one for them. That's the most vitality, the correct, in the correct state for them to eat and so on.
Yes, I'm fully by you, and I work and exactly on this. When I go and there are cucumber or tomatoes, and I go with my hand over this, and I see the muscles are okay, or I have some attention in the muscles, and so you can quickly feel what is better for you. Or I took a good bottle of red wine and bring it to my solar plexus, and have a feeling like a lecture at the school. I have breathing, or is free my solar plexus. It's very easy to feel this. There's a little training.
You've introduced the second tool, which is feeling. First you said you just see the fields. Now you're saying feeling too, which is, and you mentioned actually 2 ways. One was with the solar plexus, and the other was just moving your hand over. Well, it could be some fruit or vegetable, or it could be someone's body, depending if you're doing body work and that kind of thing. So okay, there's 3 ways. You got any more that you can let us know? And that'll all be in the workshop this afternoon. So people should sign up. If you're not already a KFSSI student, it might be a good time to do that. And it's still what, €100 a year for the complete year's teachings and all the recordings. Is that still correct?
That's still correct, Rick. Yeah.
Okay, and people can sign up at the KFSSI education site.
That's kfssi.org/apply.
Thank you, Flint. Perfect.
Estella, do you have one quick question?
Hello. Yes. Have you ever tested the nutrients using plasma and no plasma? If there is any change in the quality of the nutrients in the plant?
What do you mean by the nutrients? What test?
The contents. I mean,
just with a simple Brix meter, or
no, like with the testing which kind of minerals, the content of the plant.
No, I have not done that myself. No. But when you're testing them, what you're doing is you are just testing one, testing on the sort of the physical aspects of it, because you're just testing one mineral against another when you're looking at the two plants. But the changes that are coming into the plant is more on the field basis. So you're not going to be able to measure it on that basis from element point of view.
What you do find, though, is that the shelf life is always an indicator of whether a plant has all the correct nutrients or not. You'll find that poorly grown crops have a very, very short lifespan on the shelf, and good organic, healthy, well-grown food always lasts much better on a shelf. So that is an indicator of that.
Yeah, I live in Northern California, and during summer, my family they learn to do compost tea, and we bought the microscope checking for disease, and we noticed the plants as we use the teas, and we made our own compost, like buying all the different nutrients independently. They change the colors. Now it's winter, I still have tomatoes, and at the same time I was looking at the plasma technology, and I was amazed at the same elements that they were doing in the compost is in the plasma field. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, our experience and results over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, is that when a plant is healthy, we don't seem to have any pest problems with healthy plants. It's when you have unhealthy plants that you have pest problems as well. And so for us now, when we have pests on any of our produce or lettuce growing, we know that we're doing something wrong. So for us, it becomes an indicator now to make sure that we are making the plants as healthy as possible and giving them what they need.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go on to the soul. So today I'm going to introduce one of the concepts that has been touched on before, but I'd like to just focus on one concept at a time in these teachings so that we can study each one and get a handle on it, because there are basic and fundamental concepts of how our souls operate. So when we looked at the plasmas, we saw that field interaction between two people at a soul level or two plasmas, what is magnetical to one becomes gravitational to another because it gets pulled in. And so one plasma or one person feeds another. And so we had discussed this in a previous workshop, how, we are feeding others and how we need to give. So now we go a little bit further and we see that sorry, I'm slow on the flipping of the pages here. So what we give out, we see, also comes back to us, because the fields we give out connect to the same strength fields of any entity around us, and the fields of the same strength are then combined with the other entity's fields and get fed back to you. This means that when they come back, when it's something that's emotion, it is magnified, because like attracts like, and the fields build. What fields would you like to build? And that is a fundamental question we all have to ask ourselves, what fields we'd like to build. And so when we look again, the plasma, when we look at the plasma, which I'm waiting for right. Fields are continually given out freely, And what's not needed in the environment, or what isn't taken in by somebody else, is taken back into the center. The principle of giving and receiving unconditionally is how we need to see that. And obviously, what isn't given out and taken by others comes back in. So if you're giving out, it automatically also comes back in. So we have to think about this really carefully, because you want to give out the things you want to take back in as well. What's not taken in by others is taken back in by you. You feel yourself, your emotion, in a feedback loop. And that is quite important. And this is, again, this whole story about you are creating your reality. So just like Dr. Rodrigo explained, when you're not feeling so good about yourself this morning and you walk out the door and you walk down the street and everybody seems to be frowning at you, why is that so? Because what you give out is coming back, and you're giving yourself this feedback loop of anything negative. So we have to really decide that we're going to do the positive things. A field of happiness creates happiness in others. A field of fear creates fear in others. And we are helping to create the reality for ourselves and those around us. And this is especially important when we think about it seriously, about the world that it is today. And there are many negative things going on in the world, and we tend to sometimes dwell on these things. And we need to try and change this, because you're an amplifier of the fields that others are giving to you. You're inadvertently amplifying the negativity and fear. So we must choose not to connect and amplify with these things, but rather change the field by giving support, love, and positivity that will elevate all of us. Because we tend to sometimes want to, oh, this is wrong with the world and that's wrong with the world. And look at what they're doing here and look at what they're doing there. But the only way to change this is not to make it worse by constantly dwelling on it. You need to know that it's there, but we need to change things by changing the whole atmosphere around us, by giving the love unconditionally and elevating those around us. So the concept we had a look at today is what you give out comes back in. And concept number 2, you're flowing the fields of others' emotions and amplifying them. You know very well that if somebody comes and they give you a bad look, hopefully you don't want to give them a bad look back, but that is your immediate reaction. Concept 3, consciously change the field by connecting and amplifying, giving and loving to elevate others out of their negative emotions. And that one's quite important, I think, because we tend to not think about it, but if you consciously just every moment of every day decide on what you're giving out, and just know that it needs to be unconditional, not expecting anything back, but it's living in the moment every single minute of the day, and knowing that you need to just take a step back and breathe and not get caught up in the emotional turmoil of many things today, because what you give out is what comes back to you. And I think that's quite an important one for us to think of today. So, any questions?
I have a question from earlier, actually, in the Facebook chat, but it does apply now. What happens when you're looking after a sick relative spending the night in the same environment, in the same room? How are you affected?
You choose what you are accepting from others. You choose. You choose to feel like, oh my God, this is a horrible experience. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Or you choose to say, I'm here to serve. I'm helping them in their time of need. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to be here, to do this service to somebody. And it changes your whole attitude to what you're doing. And it's not going to affect you as well. You know, everything is your own perception. That's what it boils down to.
Yes, exactly. Anybody else have any other questions?
I would like to just respond to that. Let's carry that picture a little bit further. This is Nicholas. So we go to take care of the relative. We realize that we're serving them. And what the feedback then we get from them is we aren't doing it correctly. We have this problem. We have that problem, because it's in their emotional pattern. And so they're bombarding us. And sometimes one's not strong enough. As much affirmation, as much knowing, as much time as one spent to realize they're not their emotions, that they are, really a higher self, a pure self, a God self. When you're being bombarded by negative emotions in a situation that you can't get out of, you have that's a challenge. So maybe you could respond to that.
I think it is a challenge, Nicholas. But if one is constantly aware that that person is living their reality and their perception, and all you can do is try and help them to get through it, it makes it easier not to take on that others' pain. And I know it's really difficult. I mean, I'm sure it's especially difficult, for example, if it's your own children, for example, that are ill. You get very distressed when it is somebody close to you. I don't know. I go into autopilot, and I tend to kind of switch the emotions off a little bit and dial it back. Some people might think I actually go a bit colder because I know I have to work efficiently to get things done. So yes, really difficult position, and it's really just to be open to the love. That's all I can say. I've never been in a situation where I've had to nurse a really sick person for a very long time. I have had family members be quite ill and frail, but not to the extent where it got me totally down. So I don't know if anybody else has experience with that and can comment.
Okay, I have another question here from the YouTube channel. The soul is a field. The body is the materialism of the soul manifesting itself. After death, can you manifest again in the limits of the nature on Earth or on Neptune or any other planet?
Well, if you think that, I'm sure you can, but you would need some extra field strength to re-manifest again. So you might need a little bit of extra fields. This is still a conundrum I haven't quite gotten my head around. Maybe Mr. Kesh will still let us in on the low down and nitty gritty of these things. But when you understand that, when he explained that, for example, when the soul departs the body, it's like the center of the neutron splitting to become the electron and the proton. They are then separate to now be stronger and combined again, in a sense, in a strong field. You would need additional fields, which is my understanding, but where these additional fields come from is yet to be determined.
Okay.
This is Moshfaq speaking, and I have some comment on the previous question, which was about, there is a little background noise where I am, but I hope people don't get too bothered by it. Anyway, so it's about having people at home who you know very well, children or relatives that are staying with you, and there is a negative field around it, sort of negative emotions. One of the techniques I have used for a long time is use jokes, not silly jokes, but stories that are funny. And it works very well with children. And some of the adults may not be as inclined to such stories, but I have done one thing that seems to work very well, is that have some children or young adults sit next to me and tell those stories in front of the older people. And that helped quite a bit, because these laughters are kind of, and these stories are kind of like thought-provoking at the same time. So it kind of takes you gain access to certain higher fields, almost, at the soul level, I would say, in that sense. And it works fairly well, especially if you can continue it for 15 minutes to half an hour. It works wonderfully. And then you can talk to these people normally often. And that's my experience in dealing with this kind of negative emotion and creating your own field, which is stronger, powerful, and more tuned to the needs of the soul.
Thanks, Mosfeq.
Could I comment to that? Maybe.
Sure.
So we there have role relationships. It's a very clear role of one to the other, and one can take charge. Let's get into the nitty gritty. How about the relationship with your partner? You're now both equals. You create roles maybe one way or another, but you have established patterns over the years that you lock into. And so maybe we would speak to that, because often those patterns are almost like a program, almost like a neural program that's operating in each of the participants. I think one of my answers comes is that one needs to change the environment and get out of that situation for a while, not necessarily getting a divorce and leaving each other. So a technique of being able to meet these sort of toxic situations that become a part of our brain, and of course a part of our soul experience, that is wanting something else. We're wanting to give love, but what we're actually giving isn't love. It's a toxin.
Yeah, thanks, Nicholas. Just talking about generally you amplifying, you tend to, you come into balance with somebody and you kind of tend to amplify. So if there's a bad situation and you send the bad vibes back, you continually keeping that balance of the bad vibes or amplifying each in your own turn. And the number one is plasma positioning, which means move off to find your comfort zone somewhere slightly else. And number two, you have to change the field, because where there's balance, that's where it's going to sit. So you have to consciously change the field interaction and the fields that you're giving out or taking in. And this means consciously you yourself have to take responsibility for you, not necessarily your partner or whoever else it is, but you need to consciously change. I watched a beautiful little video on Facebook the other day about a guy teaching children in schools how to how to stop bullying. And all he did was he took a child on stage and they staged a little confrontation. And the one was saying, "Oh, you mean?" And the other one was saying, "Oh, and this and that." And the confrontation was going backwards and forwards, and it was feeding on itself. And even if you are, the person is getting a reaction from you, doesn't matter what type of reaction, there's still a reaction from you. And the guy said, "Okay, now all you have to do to stop the bullying is to turn this into a slightly different field or strength." What he said was, you just have to turn it around. So the bully says to the little kid, "You stink." So the kid says, "Well, thanks for telling me. I'll make sure I go and have a really good shower tonight. I really didn't understand that I was offending anybody." Straight away, the bully can't come with another retort and start feeding the fields back and forth from the others. So you've changed the condition and you've stopped the confrontation. And this holds true for any kind of relationship and interaction between two people. If you just change the strength of the field, it starts changing the interaction. If it's something that's set over many years, it's much harder to change because it's you that's now in some kind of a habit as well. And those emotions that you've built to cover and block certain things, to create those filters to your soul, is what you have to work on. And you will start changing the environment, allowing the other person to work on their emotion too.
I have a question also here in chat. Here it says, "Do we bring inherited diseases through our soul, such as like mitochondria disease, or does that come from our ancestors' physicality?"
That you'll have to ask Dr. Rodrigo about.
Flynn, can you repeat the question, please?
It's just a simple question. Do we bring inherited diseases through our soul, such as mitochondria diseases, or does it come from our ancestors' physicality?
We bring diseases through our DNA, through it's a little tricky questions. We have to understand that if you understand that we live before, that we have a reincarnation, we bring emotions through the soul. We bring emotions from the previous life, and we manifest those emotions in the next life. And you create that same environment you had before. You create diseases, you create problems. So you bring that information through the soul. Call them karma, call them anyways.
So what happens when a pregnant mother drinks heavily alcohol during pregnancy and ends up with, a child that has a terrible disease?
Yes, but there's a physicality. You're affecting the physicality. When you're taking something, you're damaging. It's not about the soul. It's the physicality. You're taking elements that your body doesn't need and affect your body and affects the body of the new child. It has nothing to do with the soul.
May I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Stella.
I love the explanation of the fields of, what's your name, the lady who just spoke?
Lisa.
Lisa. I love how you explain the interaction of the fields. And I think that concept is applicable to what you were answering, because the baby's in the womb and is within the field of the mom, and so you have the field of the emotions plus the field of the environment toxic, right? But also a child, you know, during the years of growing, the developmental years, absorb the environmental field of the family, which is related to this, what the gentleman was talking about is like a program, how people, the relationship between people, you know, how they respond, how they communicate, the emotional interaction. So that also is absorbed in the child in the subconscious mind, and when they go out as an adult, they start to behave in the same way, but they don't realize it's a behavior that was absorbed in the field of the house when he was a child. And then because you keep repeating having problems, or why people are mean to me, or why am I always lose my job or something, is because they don't realize they're projecting things that they create a negative outcome. And what I'm realizing is the solution is what Lisa mentioned, in terms to understanding that if someone is, you know, what we receive from outside, we maybe are projecting in our field, but we don't realize we have that in our field. And the other field is telling me, you know, sending me the hint when it's coming back that something is not right, and I need to look at my own field instead to look at the other field, right? And that's what I'm realizing. It's almost like I'm the projector of my own reality or DNA. I don't know how to explain it, but basically I'm the one have to be responsible and be able to stay still, to be able to at that moment decide the shift of my field, to now encounter more upset people with me, you know. So yeah, I think I love what you said. I think it's very clear to me how to start really shifting.
I think it's important to figure this out. And in terms of the genetics and the environment, I think it's so fluid. I don't think one can say for definite it's one or the other. I mean, I take myself, for example. I am a child that was adopted at birth, and my adoptive parents, when I hit about 20 or whatever, if I would answer the phone, nobody could tell the difference between my voice and my mom's voice. And I could sense and I could see and I could feel many times I've picked up the mannerisms of my parents. Now, if you live in a home where you are to biological parents, somebody would say, oh, look at her. She does the exact same things that her mother does. It must be so genetic, you know, even though, and also that they look the same. But it's not necessarily the genetic part. It's the environment part. And we pick up on each other's fields, and we almost absorb that person's fields by being in their close proximity. And we mirror them often. So it's a very fluid thing, genetics versus environment. And I think it's not necessarily one or the other.
And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but maybe it's a question. I think the DNA or the genetic is like a living, it's living, it's not fixed. Because with the plasma field and with the, you know, being able to take ownership, we can shift. It's like the neuroplasticity of the brain. It's like the body has, it's plastic. I mean, it can change.
I'm sure it is, yes. I think we're going to go more in and more into that aspect of it soon, and I think it's very, very relevant. Yes.
It could be that when it gets to DNA, which may be even more flexible than the genes, that we maybe tend to create certain genetic patterns. We may create those genetic patterns by imitating when we're young, our parents. So we tend to say it's inherited, but maybe it's just imitated. However, once it is in the genetic makeup of the individual, it's typically, I would imagine, I'm saying this, maybe not out of authority, not so easy to change instantly. Those environments, those patterns, those situations maybe need to be changed over a period of time, so that the genes and the genes of a person, the genomes of a person, can then change to what they want, which is creating themselves. It maybe doesn't happen overnight. So that's the problem with patterns in a family. For instance, one person can go away on a trip. They're rested. They're inspired. They come back. They're feeling really good about themselves. The first week is really great, and then the pattern set back in, and one's right back into the same situation. So I'm thinking that's the same with the genome in a person. That those need to be changed and given time for that to shift. It took a long time to build. Maybe it takes more time to shift. And maybe that's also just a thought. And maybe it can be done instantly. But I think most people have a challenge to do it instantly.
I think the trick is going to be that we have to use the soul and the emotion to shift the physicality, because the physicality can be shifted from the outside in a sense. We can take a tablet and fix a headache, or, do something physical to set something right physically, but it's usually fleeting. It's got to be cemented by emotion and soul level to make it stick. That's how I see it often. And that's why when we look at the different conditions we create for the body to allow the body to rectify itself, if you don't tackle the emotion, which then helps to elevate the soul, you're not going to get the person into a totally healthy state. They're going to revert back.
Lisa, it's Caroline.
Yes, Caroline.
About the emotional state, would it be advisable for people in a very simple way to understand not to go into their extremes with their emotions, and when they can observe themselves, like when they go and explode for anger or explode in any shape or form, to be very fast on top of that type of emotion and to stay as steady as possible, then you will already be aware to reorganize your emotional state to create the balance, because you notice you're going to go shooting up, or you're going to be going in one or another of extreme. I think the trick sits to be on top, observing, no matter if it's in your DNA or if it's inherited, but to watch yourself like through an extra set of glasses, to see how you behave and how you respond to certain impulses from your environment, and to take control simply by continuously observing, where do I go out of my way, and how fast can I rectify where I'm going into the extreme, because that's where you use so much energy. And I think once you find that pivot point of observing yourself, not to go into those extremes, you will find more balance, because emotions is using your energy in a shooting point and in extreme that depletes you. And that's where you create the instability. And people come, and I can hear, they say we have inherited, or it's coming from our parents, or it's coming from, they recognize the signals, but they don't know how to get them under control. And I think the best thing is to look, when you hear yourself raising or changing, to just to pay attention to it, or write it even on small notes. Like, I have to stay calm, or I have to keep my calm, and take 2 or 3 steps backwards to say, I don't need to. I can let this to pass on. I don't need to jump on this boat or emotion explosion. Because mainly, even all the illnesses which are appearing is because there has been a huge emotional shift somewhere. And a lot of people can't find their path, why or how, or the root of it. But it's just that they have used too much energy at that moment, and they don't let go. And it's been maybe a few months or a few years where the offset was. But I think emotion is the first thing that people should start looking to observe. How do I respond to certain conditions in certain conditions?
Thanks, Caroline. I think operating us at a soul level, the first thing we have to actually do is to start becoming self-aware. And that means understanding how we react all the time and being able to step back and look at ourselves sort of almost in that third person. And it's important to do that because it does help you to steady yourself and to understand why you're reacting, because often it's not you reacting because of your perception, not what the real condition is. Because you feeling threatened or you feeling angry, it's not necessarily correct in the way the whole thing is set up, So you have to really look at things very carefully, and every teaching going back through history, sort of spiritual teachings have often said, be in the now, center yourself and be in the now, and it's important. So thank you very much.
Yeah, because if you can bring calmness within you, but not to jump, as we say sometimes, on a high horse, it has become something which comes instinctive because of pattern. But if people can start just standing still, why do you respond? And what's the reason to lose your temper or go shouting or responding, as you said, to something which is not insultive, but it appears to be insultive to you? It means you're sensitive to it. But I think if you can find the steps, when you can create calmness inside you, that's where you can open your path more easier to your soul level. Your soul level cannot reach you because you have a disturbed physical body running, shouting, responding too fast into extremes. And a lot of people don't understand when people talk or explain meditation. Meditation is just a trick to be quiet with yourself. No more, no less. It's the stillness within you that will open the door for you to hear, to be able to absorb, that your soul can communicate searching. Where is my soul? How can I communicate? It is in a lot of mystery being wrapped around, and people go to extent of courses and visiting other countries. But in so many ways, it's the pivot point of silence within you that you can at least start listening to your own voice. That voice is your soul. So we all need to start trying to create that quiet stillness, even if it only starts with 5 minutes a day. Then you will start hearing your voice, which is your voice of your soul. Because you can start eliminating whatever is disturbing and the reactions, which then create more reactions. And you really explained it very well, Lisa. Thank you.
And I must say that the easiest way I found to start doing that was when I started using the Ganses and making the Ganses. That was the first thing I noticed, was my ability to step back from things and think about them before reacting. So I suggest that anybody who hasn't yet interacted with the Ganses use that as a first step, as well as trying to work on themselves. It does seem to help quite a lot.
Yeah, but the Ganses, what do the Ganses do in reality? The CO2 and the zinc Gans, they give you the shortage of what you have on energy. So they build your energy up and you only take what you need. So with rebalancing yourself by receiving just that sufficient enough energy, that's when you become calm. People which are agitated and always on the fight and the run is because they're short of energy. So they create chaos to receive that fast shot of energy. And this is what people don't seem to understand sometimes, that some people create fights because they're short of energy. So they need to have that shot of energy, so they create that environment that they can take. And that's where people don't understand that is stealing. So it's much easier to say, you know, can I have a kiss or a cuddle? Or can you just hold me because I'm just short? Then start creating chaos or a fight. Children usually do this. They start poking, they start fidgeting, they start agitating. But in so many ways, you should just walk towards them and just hold them, kiss them, and give them a cuddle. And avoid that depletion of the energy, which is so instant but so short-lived, because nobody sees it's an energy play. So the Ganses, when you have them around you and you work with them, even anything to do with what you have created, is rebalancing your energy system. You're one walking ball of energy. So wherever you're short, you shoot to get, as we say. But it can be done in a much easier way. And when people start having the Ganses and they start using the Ganses, they change. They just change. And it's amazing. But you can also be yourself the Gans station by being that one who is like a teddy bear that people can come and be hugged and be kissed. You are that walking energy field, so you can even generate and create that extra field which somebody else is short of. That's why smiling at somebody sometimes creates miracles, because you're sending the energy which is targeted for that person to change his mood or to change his whole being. And they feel it because they smile back. So you can be a walking Gans tank as you are, but learn how to use it to where to apply it.
I'm sure we all know a person in our lives. I've known a couple of people who it doesn't matter wherever they walk into, whatever room they come into, wherever they are, they make other people smile, and that's who we all want to be, I think, because that person knows just how to give. You can feel it in them. They just give, and they light up everybody's lives. I've known a few people like that, and they truly are amazing. And I think we all need to aspire to just give. Were there any other questions, Flint?
I don't see any at this time.
Oh, maybe we need to wrap it up. It's been another long session.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. That
call it
was
a wrap.
great. Thank you, everybody.
Any last words?
Not from me. Thanks, Flint. It's
Okay.
been another great one. Thanks, everybody, for listening to us. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, team. Thank you, knowledge seekers. It was beautiful this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, big thanks to Jim and Lisa and Rodrigo and Flint. Thanks for the production today. Lots of good information that satisfied some of the questions I think that came up.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming here. And tomorrow, again, we have the 17th One Nation, so join us with that tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. Central European Time. So thank you everyone for coming. This has been the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Public Teaching in English for Monday, November 13th, 2017. And it's the Understanding Plasma Science, Part 8. So we'll see you next week. And I'll end here with a little bit of music.
Thank you, Flint.
Yes, thank
Thanks,
you, Jim.
everyone.